Good evening, good afternoon, good night. This scene sets itself deep within the noble district. Within one of the richest neighborhoods in the city of Odessa. The roads nicely paved. The houses made of fine materials, decorated in only the most ostentatious fashions of the era, possessing of windows that you can actually open and close, locked doors, a strong presence among the city watch. And walled and fenced off the gardens. Sister Madeleine is familiar with the beautiful, if not mundanity of this district. She's been here many times. She is actually permitted to be here, as while no one has claimed this area as domain, it is very much an area you're not allowed to go in as a commoner. It is a part of the city that the city watch forbade people from entering. It is kind of its own little sanctuary where the nobility may sit in their ivory towers away from the hardships of the common folk. Madeleine, you are a known face, and arrangements have been made for you to come and go as you please. And you know exactly where you're going. It's a house you've been in many times throughout the decades, and it's changed many times throughout the decades. You find yourself walking towards Oryx Haven. One of his havens, at least.
And Madeline, for herself, is she is calm to a certain extent, but what she's most likely going to spend most of this meeting discussing is something that's still, well, fresh in her mind, shall we say? More than that, it is weighing down on her. She has experienced some things in these last couple of nights that have rattled her understanding of the world, rattled her beast in one way, maybe more than one. Maybe it's rattled something about herself, not her beast at all. Who knows? But she is going to be in good company, no matter what. And she will just smile to the port guard and hopefully get inside.
You walk up to the door, and 'tis knocked, and it is soon opened, as you are expected. Have the ever familiar face of the good former prince. Madeleine, please come in.
Thank you very much, my dear. So, it is always comforting to get here, to come here and be welcome. She will put out a hand.
You will take your hand and lead you in. Would you like something to drink?
I do believe I am not that hungry. Well, we can share a drink. I would not drink without having you share one as well.
Of course. I'll be just a moment. He leads you to a living room. Spacious. This house has gradually grown in size throughout the years. It's become larger, a bit more grand, a bit more architecturally artistic. Particularly ever since he left, funnily enough. He heads down into what appears to be a basement or cellar. He brings with him a bottle of you can actually smell quite strongly different drinks, not just wines. Wines mainly, water, some cheaper alcohol, but you can also smell the hint of vitae on the air as well as it wafts out as he just opens the doors and heads down. It only takes him a minute before he finds a bottle of vitae, and he takes 2 goblets out from one of the areas in the living room, a cupboard of sorts. The arrangement of cutlery and not glasses, goblets and kitchenware. Most of it appears to be for show. But he takes 2 out and pour you a drink. Do you have a feeding restriction? Or any exclusions?
Nope. She can also eat food. So Madeline is good with this.
The likelihood of you running into an exclusion would be rare, but
well, you never know it until you hit it, but
exactly.
Thus far, I mean, it's kind of like allergies, essentially. I mean, if you never eat what you're allergic to, you're never going to find out. So.
You you see the thick red substance flow into the goblet, and he will hold it up and have a drink.
She will too.
It tastes as sweet as it ever has.
Madeline will just smile, lean back in the chair, and just for a couple of moments, and then she'll open her eyes and just say, "So, you had some quite significant questions. May I start with one?"
By all means.
The Primogen and yourself were able to see, hear, with quite a amount of detail as to what I was doing when I was meeting with these others. How were you able to? I'm curious. Was it a ritual?
I must say I'm somewhat surprised. I thought you saw me.
Apparently not. You have learned much that I do not know.
Looks a bit amused. Well, who do you think has been shadowing you all this time?
I am a lot more comfortable now, knowing that it is you. But it is... No, I have not been able to see that it was you, but this fills me with a great amount of comfort.
It's not any coincidence that whenever you leave your house to go after those things, that your shadow just becomes a little bit more dense.
But how do you do it? Is it just a function of the aggression, or is it something else?
You can do it too. Make a La Sombra law check if you want. If you're struggling to figure it out. Only be a low difficulty, difficulty 5. Probably difficulty 4, actually.
Yeah, I'm rolling a dice roll of 1, even though we
Let's
had
roll 1. Yeah, no, I need to start. I need to actually remember to do this crap.
let's say, intelligence, something lore.
Yeah.
I have 5 or 6 successes, so
Let's go. Okay, there we go. With that many successes, he's literally implying all he did was take his tenebrous form and sit in your shadow.
Melon thinks on this for a while and just says, a curious thing. I have never thought of doing something like that. I have always thought the form to be large and sprawling, but that you can compromise it that much is a curious thing. I have never thought of it.
It has its limits, but it is a gaseous substance largely.
Are you calling yourself a gaseous substance? No, I am kidding. And I would not say such scandalous words about an honorable hound.
I
She
certainly hope
gives a
not.
wide grin to you.
He'll just sip his blood tea.
But you were there. There were still shadows to hide it. You saw that I repeated a ordeal I did once, which you find despicable, which is understandable given that you are not on the road that I am. And then suddenly my shadow was no longer there. I was no longer there. You did not see.
No, he simply vanished. And her, similar to what Nosferatu can do at their greatest levels of potency.
No, no, no. It may seem like it, but no. I was in that room. Just not. I was in a place that looked in some way similar, but it was filled with other creatures. Some of the walls were missing. There were plants there of a twisted nature. I was in another I was not in our world. I was gone, but I was gone to another place. She describes it as the void, that which we manipulate with our power. Is another one of these worlds. This was a third, another one, if I am to understand what she said to me. But then oppression still worked, could still manipulate. She wrapped me in chains of, I do not know what they were made of, but the ordeals continued. I saw fragments of different things. I saw visions of things I cannot really discern. I am quite sure I know where the origin comes from, but out of character, can I make a second reflection on what I saw with an intelligence and enigma roll and hopefully not botch this one as well?
You botched. You didn't get to reroll, buddy.
God damn it.
You botched.
Yeah,
Ain't no rerolls in this timeline. You're in the darkest timeline.
Madeline will continue. She'll describe the shadow creatures as best she can, and then she'll just say, "I saw something else. Did you feel a difference when?" Well, she smiles again. We entered that place emotionally. Did you feel your mental state change? Aggressive behaviors become more prevalent?
It wouldn't be the first time.
I saw something that was, I think it was one of the things that facilitates such change. It is a soul, a spirit, a thing made out of ether. I do not really understand what it is, but she described it as something that facilitates certain emotions in people. And what I have contemplated on, if this one is present in this world but affects us in our world, maybe there are more of them. Maybe there are in all of the worlds coinciding with ours or existing in the same place yet a different place. If there are more of these things present there are so many, then it might be overwhelming. That might also be the reason why I was willing to do the things I did. It's also why I felt so overwhelmed by this emotional change. I believe that these web beasts can manipulate these things, and that they can manipulate the emotions, but in a quite different way than we can. Well, some can. Another thing to notice, when I looked, you do know that I have the gift of auspex, yes?
He just nods.
When I looked at her, I looked around, it was different. It was though there was no aura really. It was more the case that she was her aura. Aura.
That wasn't true for the werewolf.
Oh,
It was
sorry.
true for the other entities you were scanning.
She will say that the other entities seemed to be their auras essentially. Like there was no distinguishing between
Yeah, the color of their being represented the actual emotional state.
And then she will just say, she was about to suggest that she could help me here indefinitely. But I managed to convince her. As you know, I am very convincing. I managed to convince her that I needed time to, well, sort through the visions I have been given. She complied, and I returned.
I wouldn't take anything she says at face value.
I don't. That is why I emphasized she said that.
Sounds like she's trying to bait you in.
She is. For what end, I am not quite sure, but a general theme I have gauged seems to be that torture and pain can become a positive thing, become something of either enjoyment or wanting. I am in the. I'm currently making host to one of their. They call them kinfolk. They seem to be blood relations in some ways to these creatures. Of family, but which would make sense given the word kin. But how exactly, I do not know. But this one is broken, constantly wanting to be fed upon, constantly wanting pain, not to know its true effects, not to become stronger or better, but simply because I think she is enjoying it. I will help this poor soul. I will help it to see the truth in time.
I
But you,
remember when we first met them. It appears they are no less savage than the creatures outside the city.
quite true. The difference would be that they want to talk with us, not rip us apart. But other than that, they are definitely bestial or savage.
Question is, why are they luring you in? You're known to them, but
I do not know.
maybe she is trying to exploit your beliefs.
Which would beg the question, how does she know my beliefs? But that would be the most. If she was trying to exploit, she wants something from me. She wants something. She sees either something that needs to be destroyed or coerced within me. Why is this the case? And that is the question. She seemed disinterested in any of us the first time, as far as I recall.
Perhaps she sees now something she can use, or perhaps it's an issue of timing.
Quite so. But I will promise you one thing, my Ulrich. My champion. I will not go back there. I hope this brings some comfort, some calm to your heart.
It does.
Even though she
That was
promised me to show me the void firsthand, the corruption, whatever it is she's doing to me, it is not worth losing myself to the beast or something else entirely.
then it is much like the void. I would recommend not visiting it or even looking into it.
Lest I end up as Orsini?
Worse.
Perhaps. But who is to say that that great founder have not visited that place? But,
Our mystics have their uses, but in
but
many
we are
ways
not
they're lost to
mystics.
us.
We are not mystics. I understand your reason. What do you make of these things? Should we slaughter them also? Should we continue negotiating? Should we find a peaceful solution? Or do you agree with the our primogen who wants to play them against these Setites and seemingly seem to believe that this will end with that present?
You spoke of them having blood relations.
Yes, they seem to. And I am, well, if anything can be said that this can be trusted. These things, these weird beasts, they seem to reproduce as mortals do. They seem to have families.
We may be able to curtail them if we find these so-called kin.
I have one of them, but she knows nothing. I have but bonded her to make sure that she is cooperative.
She would not have gifted you this person if she knew anything of value.
I know she could still be a reliability, but I merely wanted to assure you that I have not opened myself to even more dangers or vulnerabilities. She is loyal now.
It might be worth it. If we used this knowledge to gain sway among the Setites.
I could speak with them if you would like. share some of this knowledge. Although they were to give us boons for this, well, it would put me at a risk. I would be rightfully so seen as a great traitor to these things. For the moment, seeing some of the things that these things are capable of, well, honestly, I would possibly have it us being a more, well, for the moment, a more neutral part. As far as I was aware, the Primitin was having plans to get rid of these things.
Perhaps provide them with targets for boons, or perhaps we could even recreate the alliance we once had, albeit perhaps more subtle than before.
You would, you would take one sort of corruption for another. Albeit a more understandable, quantifiable source.
The Setites are no friends to these creatures, and if nothing else, they have been understanding and amiable in the past. I'm sure you remember Jamalia.
I do.
She will be... well, she is unfortunately no longer here, but she has been replaced by individuals who are just as cooperative.
So you would have them purged with violence from this city? The werebeast.
These so-called kin to be rounded up, we let the Setites have the glory. Or perhaps a joint venture.
But you would have open conflict.
Only when we know they have nowhere left to run. This is why we must remove their kinfolk from the situation first. And acquire their influence. Once we have accomplished this, we might begin cooperation with the Setites to remove their base of operations entirely. They most likely have the locations of a few stragglers around as well, places they frequent.
Indeed. But it seems to be quite impossible to stop them from being able to run, since they can literally go from one world to another in the blink of an eye. And we do not know, they do not seem to care too much about the well-being of their kin, given the state that this poor wretch I was.
But they do
acquired.
use them. Much like many in our society don't care about the well-being of their own ghouls or human allies, it doesn't matter. What matters is that they use them for power, and when they lose them, they are weaker. They will not be able to exert their influence on the world without their help.
But how can we be sure that this is the case? Is this just an assumption?
If any of these werebeasts had significant positions within the city, we would already know about it and they would already be dead. They're using these kin. You've answered a very important question that the Seneschal would have been very interested in hearing about. He's been quite curious on this matter.
What matter is that?
How they've been able to survive in a city when everyone is afraid of them, and they appear as boisterous and loud as they are.
They can
These so-called
disappear
kinfolk
whenever
answer
you-
this question for us. they are their outreach into the human world.
And it also makes sense if they can enter a place as they did with me. What is to say that they cannot travel in this world to a place and then reappear in another? This makes them extremely dangerous and makes the importance of the secrecy of our havens so very much more paramount.
Possibly without a place to call their own. They will not have long to remain here. They'll either have to re-establish a position, in which case they'll give themselves away again, or they'll be forced to leave. What matters is that they're removed from the city. We don't have to destroy every single one of them, only ensure that they cannot return.
What if they were to react in their savage way, and begin to rip the entire city apart? If they are kin, if they are family, if they react like other people do when their families are endangered or taken from them, well, that is quite commonly a very, very powerful reaction.
It plays into our hands and it's not traceable back to us.
Very well, my hound.
Unless they were to announce their name. Announce your name, but even then, we've negotiated with them in the past. You're the only person they knew to begin with.
So finding their kinfolk
should not be hard. I'm sure your friend Bobby knows a few.
Friend, she just turns to you and just seems appalled, but it's obviously a joke. He was an agreeable gentleman, but friend is a very large term, would you not say?
I would call the word gentleman a very large and generous term in this context as well.
Quite so. But I am the diplomat among us, remember?
Yes. I'm sure you can handle things, and they still view you as agreeable. Their impressions of you are still positive, so you can weigh on this. Especially him. He'll be a useful little piece for you to use. Just don't be too overt.
You know myself. I will be very gentle.
I know I don't have to remind you of these things. Alas, if my time, the time that I have remained alive has taught me anything, is that you can never be too safe.
Of that, we both know how I view safety. Sometimes it seems like yesterday.
So much on the surface has changed, yet in reality little has.
Those caitiff, I still think of them, you know. How close I was to meeting final death in that basement.
His smile sours a little bit. Such an occurrence would not happen again.
I will at least will make a very concerted effort to make sure that that is definitely true. That it will not happen again. But
we are better for the experience, if nothing else.
she She smiles very widely and seemingly genuinely at you. Oh, it seems that some of my wisdom have rubbed off on you. Where would we be without adversity, without struggle?
You already know my answers to that question.
Have you ever asked me, or have I ever told you what path I actually walk? It has been so long since we have spoken for a longer period of time. I think you have. You know, but have we ever spoken freely of it? I don't think so.
If I couldn't have discerned it by now, I wouldn't be much of a K-Knight, let alone Lasombra. Would I?
No, you would not. But you do understand. I can see how my actions and what happened in those caves, those 2 times I was there, would unnerve most people. But you must understand that this is. Every time I endure this, I strengthen my place in my road. Every time I am confronted with it and do not break, I become that much stronger. This is my path. And understand that there is no pressure for you to see it, but I appreciate that you worry for me. I do. I know that any anger is partly motivated by your disagreements, and probably partly because you don't wish to see me suffer needlessly. But take every suffering as a lesson. And I hope you can accept that. If not now, then in time.
I trust your judgment, so I leave you to your own devices. If I did not, we would not be in the position we are in now.
Quite so. And I value your judgment and your wise words whenever they come.
Flattering.
You are the one who did alert me to the corrupting presence of these things, after all.
And thank you for the kind words.
Likewise. Oh wait, you haven't spoken too many kind words. She drinks from her goblet and gets over to you and just more or less sits on your lap and just you have actually spoken quite a few nice words about you. Why don't you speak some nice words about me? You are falling behind, so to say.
Sorry, what is she saying to him?
That she thinks she's having a smirk on her face when she says it, but she's saying that you're falling behind. And she said so many kind words to you now that you're kind of falling behind. And she could use some kind words if she wants to, but she's obviously joking, as she's more or less sitting on his lap. So.
Oh, well, where would we be without adversity now?
Well played. Well played, my hound. It is good to be home. Not only this city, but it is good to be with you again. I I felt content in a way that I was not with my ghouls. It was a different sort of content, but being here with you seems familiar, fulfilling.
Has been a very long time.
It does indeed.
So what else of your adventures?
Outside of the city?
I'm sure you've been getting up to more than what you've just been being told to do. Would be remarkably outside of your character.
Hmm. I'm thinking of looking into this recent problem in the riverside. I've met some of the currently living Nosferatu. They seem agreeable enough. Although I have not seen many of them. One was green, standoffish sort, but decent.
He seems also slightly uncomfortable in a structured environment. I
Oh,
met
really?
him. I met him briefly, yes. He seems to have the unhealthy obsession that most Nosferatu have of sneaking around where it's not really warranted at all.
That is quite true. Can we
Although, if
fault
nothing
him?
else,
Can we
he,
fault him for doing that as much as we can fault a Malkavian for being, well, well, we all know.
I can't fault a Nosferatu for hiding. I can fault them for intrusion.
Perhaps. Although there is one good quality. He seems to have a merchant's eye on things, open to negotiations about most things, which means he is reliable to be for sale or his services be to be for sale.
He does seem to possess a rather... He does seem to possess a merchant's mindset, yes. It's one of the
This is
reasons I've picked him out for one of our most recent assignments, or the sheriff's most recent assignments. Personally, I could not care less either way what the sheriff wants. He is not the reason I am here.
truly. Mm,
But he's still a worthwhile ally to our cause.
quite so. I do not know much of the sheriff, to be honest, but I will defer to your judgment in this matter.
He is. He is a loyal gentleman. He was one of the few individuals I invited here when it was time for me to take my leave and step down.
Hmm.
So I trust him to an extent.
Hmm.
And for the most part, he has done a good job. He has been integral in keeping Tremere tensions in check.
Now that is an important job.
And his loyalty to the dream is always noted.
Hmm.
So he is definitely a positive influence on our own lives.
Hmm. Tell
That
me,
said, I feel like this position of Hound is very much a form of appeasement.
undoubtedly,
Not that it matters much to me. The position allows me to pursue my goals as I see fit. This was most likely accounted for when I was given such a title. So, if nothing else, I can at least appreciate that form of a gesture.
So, have you met another Nosferatu named Duvan? A woman is covered in strange writings.
I rarely see her. We do not know each other well. She
Hmm.
most likely knows of me being a Nosferatu, but I doubt she truly knows much. I've spent many years outside of the city, and she was not here when I left.
Hmm. Yet, people seem to know a lot about me, but oh well. It
Only
is
so
kind of,
much that you intend to give.
well, it is a bit unnerving to meet pretty much everyone here and say, I have heard a lot about you. Oh well, I suppose that cannot be helped.
You are the former seneschal.
I know. It is, well, it is quite alright. And cannot say that I do not enjoy it.
All publicity in some form is good publicity. And in your case, I would consider it to be very good.
Hmm. And if it is bad, I am quite certain that I can change it to be good.
Hmm. Do be careful about changing a good thing.
Hmm. I know.
Is there anything else you'd like to discuss, Madeleine? Or would you like to stay a bit longer?
Well, there are many things that we can discuss. And she drinks the last of her blood. She gets up. Quite a few things, actually. But, well, there is something missing for such discussions. And Madeline will begin to undress.
Huh.
And what follows is not part of this scene. Um, so therefore, we will
Where is the stop button? Where's the pause button? I can't find it.
No. No. As the two will spend time, this scene will come to a close. Thank you very much, players, for playing, and watchers for watching. Good night.